Hello, it's Julian Clegg here. A very happy Christmas Day afternoon from all of us here at BBC Radio Solent. On the way at 6 tonight, we tell the story of RMS Queen Mary and its final voyage when it left Southampton 50 years ago this year. Highly recommended that, by the way. Plus later, Paul Miller is here live with his show from 10.
Happy Christmas from BBC Radio Solent.
But now, on BBC Radio Solent, we're heading to Ringwood Leisure Centre, the home of a popular 1990s sitcom. Has anyone seen The Baby? Check that drawer.
I was just saying earlier, some of the characters, especially Brittas with his, health and safety obsession, that's kind of more relevant today than it was back then, I think.
It's a normal place, but the most strangest things happen. It's like the kind of anarchic cartoon quality it had.
Good morning, it's Gordon Brittas here, the manager of the Leisure Centre.
I don't think it really dates, I watched an episode quite recently and I think it's still very relevant today.
Well, the characters are very good and the writing was just very good as well. And the production values were really good, some of the special effects, very, very good.
Because I watched it as a very small kid, I just found his voice like one of my favourite things and I loved it.
This is a leisure centre for the community, Colin. We can't have people strolling in off the streets.
It may be in a relatively quiet market town in Hampshire, but Ringwood Leisure Centre is known to millions.
Good morning!
We're not open yet. Thursday. We open Thursday.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm Gordon Brittas, the new manager.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's just that...
And you are...
Carol.
Carol, yes. Well, if anyone wants me, I'll be in my office, Carol, all right? It may seem a small point, Carol, but I think the face we present to the public is rather important, don't you?
Yes.
And when people come through those doors for a game of squash or whatever, you are the one that creates that vital first impression. Now, there's a little rule of thumb I've always found useful. The first thing we do is smile. The first thing we say is, how can I help you?
How can I help you?
It draws people in, Carol. You see? Point taken?
Yes, Mr. Brittas.
Good.
Throughout the 90s, Mr. Brittas wreaked havoc at the fictional Whitbury Newtown Leisure Centre.
The trick with leadership, Laura, is to carry people along with you. You can't force them.
This is the Brittas Empire rebuilt, a chance to hear from the team who worked on the series that was a mainstay of BBC comedy for nearly a decade.
You've got to, and I know it might sound rather odd, but you've got to make them love you.
I'm Richard Latto, and I was very lucky to get a special invite to an event on the South Coast where the whole cast reunited at Ringwood Leisure Centre to celebrate their time working on the show. Now, over the next hour, we're going to have some classic clips and hear memories of working on a legendary sitcom. But let's start with the main man himself, Chris Barry, who breathed life into the superbly written, hapless character of Gordon Brittas.
It's difficult in 7 or 8 series and a special to think about exactly one memory, but the overriding thing about the British Empire working on it was the fun, was the positive, happy feeling that we always had, with cast and crew. Some shows, will have a sort of bit of a division between the crew and the cast, but British Empire, it was like a company, just a happy company, We all had great respect for everyone's work, and it was just I don't remember any, furrowed brows and sort of people getting really sort of het up about stuff, and there was no stress relatively, to other shows that one could get involved in.
And what about the character of Gordon Brittas? Because I imagine when you first got the scripts, you started the discussions about the show, you wanted to map out how you were going to get your teeth sunk into such a meaty character to play.
Yeah, when I first started to do the show, I kind of wanted him to be a little bit different from Arnold Rimmer, who, of course, was just Red Dwarf, was gathering pace at the time in the early 90s. So I wanted to try and, make him a little bit estuary, slightly different demographic, if you like, slightly different class, as it were, slightly a couple of notches below the very middle-class Rimmer, all his middle-class brothers who'd done so well. So that was at the back of my mind, but the script, the characters really dictated by the script, and once again, I've been very fortunate, similarly to Red Dwarf, I've been fortunate to have such a great team of writers, particularly obviously the original writers, Richard Fegan and Andrew Norris, who just wrote these lovely little farces, you know, with no jokes as such. It was just pure situation comedy, where the characters and the situation just build into usually a crescendo of utter chaos at the end, and it was just a joy to be involved.
There was one thing I put to Andrew, actually, in particular, because I think he gave you a bit of a hard time, because in some of the scripts you had massive speeches to deliver at like 100 miles per hour, but you absolutely nailed it. How did you achieve that? How did you do that? You know, the things you had to remember, the wording.
That's right, I absolutely nailed it. God, I didn't think I did at the time, and if you were ever in the studio, I could occasionally see some frustration there, as I was saying, there was no stress. Occasionally there was, probably from me, you know, but yeah, I mean, the line learning is one of those things as an actor you just have to, you know, get on with and find your own technique of learning long lines. And yes, Brittas did have these long, he's a wordy sort of person, he talks a lot, has lots of lists, you know, but then good old Arnold Rimmer up in, you know, the Small Rouge one also has a few hefty speeches. So my brain was always in good training, if you like, to do the speeches. So I'm a very important part of the character, and you know, you try and use and enjoy learning and producing each and every one.
And it sounds like you had such a fun time that if the phone rang and the BBC said, we're bringing it back, you'd say yes?
Definitely. I definitely consider, you know, over the last 2 years there have been moves to try and sort something out, and you know, I think we kind of missed the boat slightly in the first one, but yeah, I think if the circumstances were right, and that mainly involves you know, Richard and Andrew, and of course the BBC were still up for it, yeah, I'd jump at the chance of doing. I say donning the blazer again. It's on now, you know. Just yeah, the old, slightly different slacks, nice. Of course. But no, whether he'd be wearing this in the 21st century, we don't know, though, do we? So there might be a slightly different version of Brittas.
There'd be all those new regulations from Brussels, wouldn't there be, to
which he would
adhere
love.
To, which he would, wouldn't he?
He was a health and safety. You know, maniac before really health and safety mania kind of started.
But would he have been a Leave or Remain voter? You know, things like this we'd have to explore, I suppose, in the new series.
That would be worth exploring, wouldn't it? That would be, yeah. Oh, I think he was a global. He was a, you know, let's sort out some of the world's problems with a good game of badminton. You know, that was the sort of show. He was a goodie in that respect. He really meant well for everyone, for as many people as possible, and that's why sport, you know, was the big thing. He wanted sport and activities to sort of bring people together. So his heart was always in the right place. It was just actually doing it, which was a bit of a problem.
Are you going to be much longer?
Well, I'm booked in for the next hour.
Yes, I realise that. It's just we're rather anxious to sweep the pool, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind sitting out the other side for a while. It shouldn't take more than about 40 minutes, but it is rather important. Laura will get you a chair. She could probably do with the rest anyway. Oh, is this his towel?
I think so, Mr. Brittas.
My goodness, it's manky. Would you mind if we lent you another towel?
Sorry?
Burn it, will you, Colin? Nothing to pay, sir, all part of the service.
On Spitting Image, he was among others Prince Charles, John Gielgud, David Coleman, Ronald Reagan. It's not bad for a young man, started his working life as a gravedigger. In Red Dwarf, he's the odious Rimmer. In the British Empire, he's the even more odious manager of the Whitbury Leisure Centre, Gordon Brittas.
What's that, Gavin?
Nothing, Mr. Brittas.
That's a cigarette. Ah! I thought we'd established at our last staff seminar that smoking is only for the weak-willed and feeble-minded.
Yes. Yes.
We'd better meet at 5 o'clock, Gavin. I'm going to have to take you through the health statistics again.
Yes, Mr. Brittas.
Before you go, Gavin, I think an apology might be in order.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brittas.
Not me, Gavin.
Oh,
Go on. I'm sorry, Mrs. Brittas, for shortening your life by an estimated 3 minutes and endangering your respiratory system by my thoughtless and selfish behaviour.
Mrs. Brittas.
It doesn't matter, Gavin. Go on.
Now, please welcome the man that 9 million viewers love to strangle, Chris Barry. I must say, I must say... Shut up! God help us. I must say, I didn't think you'd get any applause at all, because that character, it really is... He's awful, isn't he? Any sympathy at all for him?
He never sets out to be, though. That's the thing. He never sets out to be odious. That's the whole thing, Terry. See, I have a dream in my life, you see. It's to make sure everyone's friendly and nice and lovely, just like me. I'm very blinkered, though.
Yeah. Where did you get it from? I mean, where did the voice come from? The body language, where did that come from?
Well, the voice, when I first started to get my equity card, I went on a tour with a musical director who actually spoke. I mean, in my mind, he spoke very much like this. And he used to drive his car through the hills in Wales, and we would say, no, David, there's a much quicker route to Newport. And he would go, no, there isn't, believe me. Do believe me. And of course, there always was, but we'd never dispute. He had the glazed look in his face that says, please, that's the way to go. And the physicality, the sort of shaking of the head, and that sort of, there's no reason why, all that sort of stuff, I got from my neighbour.
From your neighbour?
I don't think he knows it yet.
Yeah, he does now. You can never go home again now. And do you pick up things from observation? I mean, the body language, or does it come with the voice? You get the voice and the body language follows.
I think the voice is the first thing. I think that's the main sort of 70%, and then from there, the rest seems to fall into place.
Do you get any abuse as this fairly odious manager of a leisure centre?
Well, so far, most of the abuse I've got is as Rimmer, Red Dwarf. You know, people saying, "Where's your H, mate?" "All right, Smeghead. Hello, Smeghead. How are you?" All that sort of stuff. Yeah. But I don't really, I don't get too much abuse so far as Brittas. Yeah. I disguise myself.
I think he'd be wonderful, Brittas, if he had just a little bit something to relieve his awful smugness, because sometimes you actually switch it off in frustration with him.
Right, I can understand that, but I think ultimately he is, I mean, in this series particularly, he's been the victim, really, and the people, when he nearly got sacked, for example, by the inspector, who fortunately was a Brittas himself. But I think as I say, he always sets out to do good. It's just, unfortunately, he deals, people is my game, and unfortunately, what he does, he reads a book and learns all about people, yeah?
You said downstairs, anyone who lays a finger on a bishop deserves to have their brains splattered. There's a wall, get splattering.
But it's an animal.
Yes?
When you said you'd found out who was doing all the damage, I thought you meant a person. I said, shoot a person. I'm sorry. I can't shoot an ostrich.
Are you sure you wouldn't like to hear my idea now, Mr. Brittas?
What is it, Colin?
These muscle relaxants I've been taking are very powerful.
Yes, Colin?
Now, I thought if we gave the ostrich a handful...
You think I'm going to persuade an ostrich to swallow your pills?
Well, they're not exactly pills, Mr. Brittas, they're suppositories.
Go away. All
you have to do is... this bamboo pole.
I said go away, Colin.
Colin the handyman was always quick to offer a suggestion to the numerous problems that plagued Mr. Brittas, although they weren't often seriously considered. It was a delight to meet actor Michael Burns, who was enjoying the reunion at the Leisure Centre.
Well, it's absolutely fantastic.
And of course you were involved in so many of the plot lines that had so many silly things that went on, random things, surreal things.
Rats and goats and all kinds of things I worked with, yeah. I had a lot of fun, yeah.
What was it like when you got a script and you opened it up and it had just something totally bizarre that you had to do? What did you think?
Wonderful, wonderful, yeah. Yeah, no, we did have some absolutely... I remember the rats, and I had to pick up rat after rat after rat and put it in a box, and I said to the guy, "Won't I get bitten?" He said, no, he said, "the ones that bite," he said, "I take out," he said, so, over the years. And these rats were brought workers, you know, they were fabulous.
And of course, your character, Colin, the life that you breathed into him, he could carry a bomb around the whole of the Leisure Centre and no one would really bat an eyelid.
It's true, isn't it? Yeah. And he was years ahead of his time, you know. You remember the toilet that ran the electricity system? Years ahead of his time.
Oh, smells good, Carol.
Would you like one, Tim? Oh, Ben's having a few friends round for tea this afternoon, and I don't like buying them things from the shops.
Oh, very good. Oh, try one of these, Colin.
Yeah, I will, thank you, Tim. These products have a rather unfortunate effect on the flaky skin under my armpits. I was wondering if either of you could help me at all.
Yes, of course, Colin.
What can we do for you?
Have either of you been to the toilet today?
This isn't Brittas, is it?
Pardon?
Only I thought we decided at the last staff meeting we weren't going to cooperate with a bowel movement chart.
Look, this is a personal project, Tim. I'm trying to get a realistic estimate of the raw material available for the methane generator I've constructed in the basement.
Oh, you want to know if we can
I need a constant supply of material passing through the system, you see, and I was hoping that the staff
I'm
would...
sorry, Colin. I'm afraid I'm a straight after breakfast man myself.
Carol?
I'm afraid I don't like the idea.
It's not compulsory, Carol. It's just we all have to go. So why not channel it into something that creates energy and helps to save the environment? It's the special toilet at the far end of the squash court if you change your minds. All right.
Chocolate buns and a chat with Colin. It's days like these that make my life worth living.
It was a great role, and obviously people must have recognised you so much from that key part of the sitcom. What was it like when people must have said, "Hey, Colin," in the supermarket?
People were really, really kind, and I think, although he wasn't a good-looking character, I think I got kissed more than probably Tom Cruise. You know, women would say, "Oh, Colin," and give me a big kiss.
Well, you noticed when I saw you today, I didn't want to shake your hand, just in case you had the fungus and the plaster on your hand.
The banana pulses.
No offence.
Why are you here, Mr. Brittas?
Quickly, Colin.
Why can't I meet her?
I've told you, your place is up there behind the glass panel.
But she's my favourite royal. I've always admired her. If I could just shake her hand.
No.
Why not?
I think you know why not, Colin.
It's nearly healed.
It is not nearly healed. It's visibly suppurating.
No, it's just the banana poultice. There's no pus or anything.
I don't care what it is, Colin. You are not shaking hands with the Duchess. Is that quite clear?
Yes, Mr. Brittas.
I think the way you can help best would be to make sure those children got changed.
Yes, Mr. Brittas. The pool's all right then, is it?
Yes.
The builders were a bit worried.
Well, they said nothing to me. Patrick?
Gone.
You know, that's the third group of people to leave this morning. I'm beginning to wonder if the Duchess of Kent was such a wise choice after all.
You're listening to the British Empire Rebuilt, a celebration of the classic 90s sitcom. Second in command at Whitby Newtown Leisure Centre was Mr. Brittas's trusty deputy manager Laura, played by Julia St. John.
So many memories. The scenes we filmed here, you know, on this bit, it's all changed inside there, and I haven't not much recollection of inside. The pool possibly, but just
outside.
Outside and seeing everyone. We were saying it's like the Christmas special. We filmed a Christmas special when it was all us in the future, and it was the year was projected. I'd just been told to 2019. I thought Tim and Gavin do look like they look then.
So it's fairly accurate.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
And what about your memories of the actual series? Because your character was very much the kind of sanity in this world of Bedlam.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because you had to be quite stern at times, didn't you, with several members of the...
Brittas, yes. I mean, yes, if you like, I was like the voice of reason, the voice of the audience, in a way. Well, it was great. I mean, she was such a beautifully rounded character. They all were. You know, the series was beautifully written, and everyone had the most fantastically realised storylines, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful being able to have that, being able to draw out that side of Brittas, you know, when he could calm down with me and you know, and take a slightly more objective look at himself, you know.
And you tried to make him a better rounded person, didn't you, the character, several times, with not much luck, but that seemed to be a bit of a mission to kind of say, oh, look, come on, he's a nice guy, underneath it all.
Absolutely.
He's got a heart of gold.
It absolutely was Laura's role. I mean, because, I mean, you know, most people, I mean, he would frustrate so many people along the way, and there was so much debris left behind. But yes, it was her role to say, look, actually, he's a very moral person. He was a very moral person. You know, I mean, all his intentions were always from the highest possible position. It's just they often, unfolded in ways slightly less fortunate. But yes, it was. I mean, but structurally, in terms of the writing, that, you know, there was someone there to sort of say, look, I know it looks, it appears this way, but actually, if you look at it from my point of view, you'll see sort of something else.
Mr. Brittas, why don't you listen to people?
What?
You never hear what people say.
Laura, I had a medical 3 months ago. My hearing is A1.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, you never hear what people say. Like just now when I asked if we could have a talk. I didn't say, Mr. Brittas, could we have a talk? I said, Mr. Brittas, could we have a talk? And you didn't hear the difference.
What difference?
Well, the first would have meant I'd like a chat sometime. But the second means, if we don't talk now, I will probably self-destruct.
Right.
People don't just speak in words, Mr. Brittas. They give hidden messages in how they say things. And if you don't receive those messages, that's when you upset people.
Laura, are you trying to tell me I've upset someone?
No, Mr. Brittas. Not someone. Everyone. You upset the staff, the customers, your wife.
Helen?
Yes.
She's my wife. I love her. Why would I upset her?
I know, Mr. Brittas, but you still...
Name one time, Laura Lancing, I've upset my wife.
You remember the birthday present you bought her last week?
The moped, yes.
A blue moped with big yellow oilskins and a yellow helmet with "Hi, I'm Helen" written on the front of it.
Right, so she could pop into town whenever she wanted.
It was a very generous present, Mr. Brittas, but it embarrassed her. It wasn't what she wanted.
It was, of course it was. I asked her if she liked it and she said yes, it was fine.
Now that's exactly my point, Mr. Brittas. If she'd said, "Oh, fantastic! A moped is just what I've always wanted. How wonderful!" then you could have been fairly sure it was okay. But she didn't. She said, "Yes, it's fine," and that means it wasn't.
Well, I'm sorry. You've completely lost me there. Why would my wife say the opposite to what she means?
Perhaps she didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Sorry?
Mr. Brittas, if someone gave you a present, you wouldn't just say you didn't like it, would you?
Yes.
You would.
Tactfully, of course, Laura. Like one Christmas, Helen bought me a tie. And I told her in the gentlest possible way I didn't think the colour went with the material or any of my clothes.
What did she say?
I can't remember. I think she had to go and check something in the kitchen. Anyway, she gave me the money and I bought this one, which I treasure particularly because it came from her.
When it came to the issue of Gordon Brittas not being able to read people's emotions or even note their feelings, there was one couple who were always at the brunt of his occasionally very clear ignorance of what was really going on. Russell Porter and Tim Marriott played Tim and Gavin.
I'm afraid Gavin's gone into town for me, Julie, to get a 3-amp fuse.
All right. Oh, no, I've got his fiancée here.
Fiancée? Well, don't leave her outside. Bring her in. How do you do, Gordon Brittas manager?
Jennifer Pelham Young, I hope I'm not disturbing you.
Oh, no, not at all, no. Please, sit yourself down. Gavin's fiancée. We had no idea, did we, Julie?
Certainly didn't. I've been away for a while. In fact, I only flew into Heathrow this morning.
Ah, so he doesn't know you're here?
It's a sort of surprise. I'd say it will be. Now I'm here, to be honest, I'm rather nervous. Maybe he won't want to see me. I mean, 5 years is a long time.
And you're worried he might have found someone else, are you?
Well, I could hardly blame him.
I think we can reassure you on that score, Jennifer. In all his years here, Gavin has not so much as looked at a girl. Am I right, Julie?
Spot on, Mr. Brittas. You're sure about that?
Absence is a great test of any relationship, Jennifer, but I think your Gavin has passed with flying colours.
Such a relief.
Did you know from the word go exactly how it was going to play out? Or did you think, oh, this is only going to be for a couple of episodes? We're not going to still be referencing this situation, throughout the whole series?
Good question. It felt like a one-joke thing, really, that we were a couple and everyone recognised that and everyone accepted that. Brittas was the one person who didn't. Yeah. And there was a limit to how far that could go. What was lovely, I think, about the series was the way they developed our relationship, and we became a bickering couple after a while.
Absolutely.
And we're not anymore, are we?
No.
Yes, we are.
I wish you'd shut up. I told you not to bring that up. And also, what the writers did was actually to develop our characters independent of each other. So there was the neurosis of my character, and there was the ambition of Gavin, or Tim, as it was, and still Brittas didn't get the gag. That was and I think that's the point.
And there's that brilliant episode, isn't there, where your ex-wife turns up and you get very upset, and I think Brittas says to you, your spurned fiancé. And I think Brittas says to you something like, oh, I know your problems, Tim. I can see exactly what's going on here. You're jealous because you haven't got a girl. That's it, it's that kind of blinkered vision, isn't it? I suppose.
When did you and Gavin get engaged?
When I was 18. 5 years, 7 months and 14 days ago.
I've got him.
Oh, thank you, Tim. And here he is, the man himself.
Hello, Jenny.
Oh, Gavin. It's so wonderful to see you.
I've got you a fuse, Mr. Brittas.
Come on, Gavin, that's no way to greet a fiancée you haven't seen for 5 years. Give her a proper kiss. And don't worry, we've seen it all before, haven't we, Tim? That's more like it. Right, now you two lovebirds are going to want to spend some time alone together. The restroom, I suggest, Gavin. And don't you worry about setting up the volleyball court. Tim and I will do that, won't we, Tim?
Tim, I...
Go on, off you go. Who'd have thought it, eh, Tim? Did you know they're engaged?
No, I didn't.
Well, he's certainly landed on his feet, hasn't he? Beautiful, intelligent, and apparently rather wealthy. The ideal partner, I'd say.
Yes, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Tim, do I detect a note of bitterness there?
Bitter? Why would I be bitter?
It may not be obvious to you, but to a trained observer, your body language is saying, I hurt. You're not happy about Gavin getting married, are you? Let me tell you something, Tim. I had a chum once. We shared a flat, just like you and Gavin. In fact, we shared everything together. Whenever he went out, wherever he went, I was always there with him. And then suddenly, without warning, I came home one evening to find out he'd gone to live in Borneo. Friendships are like that, Tim. Sooner or later, they come to an end. We just have to accept it.
But how could he do it to me, Mr. Brittas?
Tim, I think the best thing is for you to think about how Gavin must be feeling. Think about how happy and excited he must be at the prospect of spending the rest of his life with someone beautiful and gorgeous and warm-hearted and who obviously adores him. Now, you wouldn't want him to miss out on that, would you? Is that any help, Tim? I thought it might.
I love the writers, the way the writers made Mr. Brittas's logic work, because there was a point where he said I was pregnant because my urine sample had come back showing pregnant.
Yes.
After some sort of drugs test or something like that. QED, not that the urine samples could have been mismatched, but I must be pregnant. And I love that logic that they gave him. Because you work in industry, since management, and you see people still have that kind of narrow thinking.
They do, and they say that absurdity is the pursuit of logic to the point at which it becomes illogical. And people talk about this being an absurd kind of farcical comedy, and that's exactly right. Brittas pursued that logic to the point at which it becomes illogical, and he takes it terribly seriously. The audience can see what's going on, and we're amused by him taking it so terribly seriously. That even we can see what's going on.
And with those illogical situations, he developed your characters so much, you could have had a spin-off or something easily, couldn't you? You must have been...
Still could.
One of the other regular employees at Whitby Newtown Leisure Centre was Patrick, played by John Carrigan.
But I think one of the wonderful days was a real hot sunny day when loads of children were hand in hand round the centre, and then Chris gets everyone electrocuted, and then doves a piece are let go, and the peace flame burns all the doves. So that day was just incredible.
This is mainstream BBC One. This is a family comedy.
I know, and there's death and mayhem.
There's so much death. There's so much darkness, and it tackles some really interesting issues in there. It talks about personality disorders, suicide.
Well, none of us are normal there, are we? We've all got something.
But why do you think the series got away with that? Because you didn't see that in many mainstream BBC One comedies, and it was a big, massive show. For it to be able to touch upon those things in the script quite brazenly, for it to actually get through and to hit the screen, why do you think it was able to do that?
I think, in a way, it's what Star Trek did all those years ago. Gene Roddenberry wrote these messages into science fiction, and people didn't really realise what he was saying because it was science fiction. And I think in this, because it's almost pantomime comedy, the messages are there, but subliminally they sink in. And I think we've got away with it because it wasn't really gory, even though we spoke about how many people have you killed today, but the messages still resonated while you laugh. I think the best medicine is when you can laugh and take medicine at the same time, isn't it?
Exactly.
So I think that's what it did.
And at the end of the day, he meant well, didn't he? Brittas, the character.
You root for him, don't you?
Yeah,
He's a pain, you wouldn't want him near you, but you always rooted for him.
The British love a loser, but he had good intentions.
He did.
You said I could have the car after you this morning. It's 10 to 9.
Right, well, I think I'm ready. Briefcase, keys, wallet. Let's go, Joe.
Oh, what is it?
Shan't be a minute, just got to clean my shoes. Do you want yours?
What?
Umbrella.
No, thank you.
They did say occasional showers.
I'll risk it.
I'll get it anyway, just in case you change your mind. strange, isn't it, murdering someone because they clip their teeth?
Is it?
Although I was thinking, it's often the little things that really get under your skin, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Still, never mind. Let's go. These brakes feel a bit spongy. When you use it, darling, press harder on the pedal. Hello, I've heard my wife's been involved in a car accident, and I just wondered... Is she? Did she say anything about the car? No, of course, very painful, yeah. Well, if you are, perhaps you could ask her about the car. Well, it's had a respray recently. I'm a bit worried about it. Right, thanks, bye. I don't know, doctors, no time for anything. Right, where were we?
There were plenty of strong female characters in the British Empire, although one member of the team was always flipping between being strong and talented, and quite often, to be honest, a bit of a mess, which was unfortunate really, seeing as Carol, played by Harriet Thorpe, was the first person that visitors would see from behind reception at Whitby Newtown Leisure Centre. And she wasn't the only person usually behind her desk, with one or two of her own children often tucked up in one of the drawers.
Are you all right? Yes. Are you sure?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just so worried about everything. Losing the car, selling the furniture, and now the baby isn't feeding properly.
I thought you said your mother was managing rather well.
She went into hospital for a hip replacement this morning.
Really? So who's looking after the baby? Carol, you haven't. Look, you know what Brittas said. If he found it in here again, he'd confiscate it. Look, why don't you take a few minutes off and have a nice cup of tea?
I can't leave the desk.
Come on, I'll look after it.
It's so wonderful, I can't tell you. It's like we'd never left. I feel I should have my grandchildren in the drawers and the cupboard, obviously. It's fantastic. It's such fun, and none of us have changed.
And what memories does it bring back? Because your character, obviously being the receptionist, you're behind the front desk a lot of the time, but you got up to some really wild and wacky things as well.
Let's not forget we blew up the centre 3 times. I actually have Mr. Brittas's twins because there was a mix-up with a costume, a tiger costume, I think if you remember, but we never dealt with that. There were so many extraordinary stories, and Carol was so mad and so adored Mr. Brittas. It was just the best fun.
You drove an excavator at one point, didn't you, in this very car park just over there?
Thank you very much. I'm glad you remembered. I didn't know if I could bring it up, but yes, indeed, I did. Out of control.
Your character had the ability to change from being a bit of a mess, to be frank, to being suddenly very stern, very confident. There's kind of no middle ground. You're either really confident, really talented at singing, playing the piano, and then the next minute you're on the floor again, all over the place. What was that like to play as an actress?
Don't you think that's like real life? Can't you go from confident to fear?
The extremes.
Extremes, darling, that's what we do. And that's Carol. I only ever play people who are psychotic. I have never played anyone who's normal. So Carol was one of the early creations, thank God.
And if the phone rung tomorrow and said we're doing a new series, you'd come back, you'd do it again.
Heartbeat. We all would.
So how did the makers of the British Empire actually come up with the idea of having a child in a drawer? And who did they think would volunteer for their offspring to play such a part? Andrew Norris is the co-writer, and he had a plan.
Our son Johnny was Ben, who is the original baby in the drawer, and he was there in each of the 5 series, and is now this strapping 6'3" lad with plaques in his beard who goes out and chops down trees for a living.
So when you wrote the scenes with Carol the receptionist having a baby in the drawer, and I imagine someone at the BBC must have said, you can't have a baby in the drawer, we'll never be able to find a baby that's willing to go in a drawer. You said, well, idea, we've got one of our own.
I didn't realise that there would be problems with a baby going into a drawer, but Jane actually practised at home, sticking him in a drawer, closing it, so he got kind of used to the idea, and that's why he could do it, yes.
What about the actual series itself? Because you'd have different series and you want to do ambitious things in each series. Did you ever limit yourself? Did you have any little guidelines, any special rules when you're thinking about what you could do?
Yes, we'd track down various, each of the characters with the stories and so on, and we'd always blow up the centre, but only once per series. I think if it had gone on much longer, it would have got tricky because we'd done bombs and we'd done gas and we'd done oil and fire and huge fun doing it.
A few of us from the late shift decided to club together and get in some flowers.
Oh, how sweet of you. Thank you.
We wanted to do something. Does anyone have any idea why he jumped?
Oh, I thought there must be some mistake. He's in the next door bed that way.
This isn't the man who jumped off the roof?
I'm afraid not. This is Gordon.
Mr. Brittas?
Didn't you hear? It was when he was walking home this evening, got run over by a treacle lorry.
That was him? I saw a bit about it on the news, but of course I didn't recognise him under all that treacle and everything. What happened?
He got run over on a zebra crossing. The driver's in the next door bed that way, and the old ladies from the bus stop are in the 2 rooms after that. It's quite an achievement, really.
I'm sorry?
Well, filling an entire hospital intensive care unit single-handed is a good score, even for Gordon.
They do say he'll be all right, don't they?
I've been sitting here wondering about that, and I couldn't help thinking if perhaps it might be easier for everyone if he wasn't. Well, if he didn't recover, if he just slipped quietly away.
Oh, I think that's a bit harsh. I mean, you can't say anyone deserves to die.
Oh, I didn't say he deserved it. I was just being practical.
I see. Well, I'd miss him.
It's all right, Laura. You don't have to cheer me up.
No, I didn't say it to cheer you up, honestly. The thing about your husband, Mrs. Brittas, I know he's annoying. Very annoying. He annoys me a lot of the time. But what I always end up remembering is that there's never any malice. He doesn't hate anybody. He cares about the centre and all the people in it. He wants more than anything to help. He really does have a dream. And even though things never quite work out the way he wanted, the fact that he tries, that he keeps on trying, well, I think that's worth something.
Do you?
I do, actually.
Yes. Yes, you're probably right.
Hello, darling.
Hello, Gordon.
You know, it was my right of way.
Richard Fegan also has many fond memories of writing the series, but it originally could have been a very different type of show.
It's about one person who could destroy a whole community. And actually, I don't know if Andrew has told you this, Richard started off as a vicar in a parish. And so for about 3 weeks he was a vicar in a parish, and then we thought, there's not much physical comedy really in a parish, you know, like actually the jokes about dustbins and steeples falling down, but we didn't want to do Vicar of Dibley, which hadn't happened then. And so one day Andrew came back, he'd been driving through Andover, and he said, there's a leisure centre there, I think we should go and look it out. So we checked it out, and that was it. I have so many favourite scenes. We did about 35, I think, and probably of those 35, 6 are probably, say 6 episodes are probably really ace, I think. And the ones when they're all pregnant, I love that one, and all for a very good reason, because Julie couldn't be asked to go around and ask everyone to pee in the jar, so she peed for everybody, and she was pregnant. You know. No, I think I liked the way all the stories came together. I love this business of all these stories, you know, pull the string, and they all come together at the end. And that's the bit which we used to enjoy writing too.
What is it like being part of a comedy writing partnership? Because everyone obviously references, you know, Gold and Simpson, Clement and Frenet, and, you know, working with Andrew. Did that make the job harder or easier?
It sounds really, it was actually very, very hard work. Other people have been known to write a sitcom in about 4 days. They can do it. It used to take us 6-7 weeks an episode. And so we spent a lot of time just sitting around crying in either his study or my study, saying, shut up, write it down, right? We just, I don't know why, it was very funny. We had a very silly time.
And you often hear the cries from television executives, oh, can we bring this series back? Can we do this? Can we do that? What do you think? Do you think Brittas would work again now?
Oh, yes, definitely. But not in the way that everybody necessarily thinks. I mean, I think that doing it again, it has to have moved on. It has to go somewhere. To bring back the people, everyone will just say, they're all older, and it's not as good as the first one. That's what people will say. And you have to go on. I think there's a real possibility, I'm not saying anything more than that going, what happened then, as an idea for the British Empire, that's the way to go, definitely. We can't go back and just do it the way it was, because we've done that. We've been there and done that, you know.
Ah, Linda.
You never guess what I've just seen, Mr. Brittas.
Where's the cow?
In there. How did he know? I suppose that's why he's the manager.
Good grief! What is going on in here? Get it out! Get it out!
Good, is it?
Now look here, Mr. Franklin. I don't know what your game is, but I want you and Buttercup here out of my building, out of my car park. What are you doing?
She's gone into labour.
What?
I think it's a breach. You better call a vet.
A vet? You can't have a carp in here. This is a squash court.
Have a better idea?
Of course. You could...
Well, I suggest you call a vet. Because if I lose this calf, I will personally sue you for every penny you possess.
Linda, get me a phone book, will you?
From cows giving birth in squash courts to troubled marriages plagued by personality clashes and serious mental health issues, the British Empire was certainly an eclectic sitcom for a mainstream BBC One audience. And at the heart of it was Gordon Brittas's long-suffering wife Helen, a character with real depth and never afraid to display her full range of emotions. Pippa Hayward played the role and loved the opportunity to meet up with the rest of the gang again at the recent reunion.
Oh, it's incredibly nostalgic. It's great to see everyone again, and amazing that they've got the whole team together. I mean, when I was initially asked to come here, I thought, oh yeah, perhaps, you know, 2 or 3 of us might come, but to have everyone, and then to remember the scene of the elephant dung. I mean, I just keep looking at that patch over there and thinking, yep, that's where the elephant dung was. Over there in the car park was where I rode straight into a bush on my moped when I was just practicing how to drive it, and with my little Helen helmet on. Hi, I'm Helen. First practice, straight into the hedge. I got slightly better by the time I started filming.
What was it like when the script came through the letterbox and you opened it up and there was something really wild and wacky in there? You know, it said your character has to give birth in the middle of Ringwood High Street. You know, in a car in the middle of a fete with all the people looking.
It's just a gift. It's so gift. I love physical comedy. I love high physical comedy, and there's so much very low-key comedy around that it was just the joy to be able to let rip with it and realise that there were going to be so many different opportunities to play some really wild and weird comedy. And I don't think there were many other shows at the time that would have given you that many opportunities for that, and also for the women as well. You know, often you'd have sort of Frank Spencer, who was doing a lot of stunts and stuff, but not many opportunities for women to parachute down into a pile of elephant dung. You know, I mean, who wouldn't want to do that?
And also the depth that your character had as well. When you think about the role that you had to play opposite Brittas as that wife.
Oh, that's very kind of you. That's the thing that struck me when I read the script, was I thought this character is fascinating, because who on earth could possibly live with somebody like that? And then you realise there's a mutual need, because she's so messed up that actually she needs somebody with the pedantic organising skills of Brittas to just keep her life sort of vaguely in order, and also to turn a blind eye on all her vice-ridden sort of sidelines, you know.
You haven't got very far, have you?
You have the second post, my darling.
I thought you had to be out of here by 12.
Yes.
Well, Gavin wants to move his stuff in, doesn't he?
No, I don't mind, Mrs.
And he
Brittas.
doesn't want you hanging around whilst he does it. He just wants you to go.
No, really, I have to go and find Tim.
Do you think anyone would mind if the children came along?
Children?
And I thought they might quite enjoy it, and then afterwards you could take them out onto the lawn to meet the press.
Right.
So what time do you want them? About 5:02?
Yes, I should know by then.
Know what?
My darling, could you ask Colin to step up and have a word, please?
There's nothing wrong, is there?
No, of course not.
Gordon?
There's a slight complication.
Let's get one thing clear, Gordon. You're not getting out of this. We're going to Brussels on the 26th, and the only excuse I'll accept for cancelling is that you've died. Understood?
At the turn of a coin, to go from, you know, her mental health issues to suddenly the jokes about putting up with him as an awful husband, and just to be able to switch, that must have been...
Oh, I just loved that. I mean, that was what made it such a joy to play, because it had so much variety in it, and you could sort of spin on a sixpence and know that you might be roaring with laughter 1 minute, but she really sort of, you know, she was quite touching at times as well, and so that's such a pleasure to play, to actually have both of those wrapped up in the same character.
The scene I think we're probably going to play a clip of that I always remember with your character was obviously the scene with the water tank where it crushes Brittas, and I think Laura's, you know, the character of Laura is fantastic. She's genuinely upset, and then obviously your character comes in and it just makes that flip.
Yeah, but she's very practical, Helen, because he wouldn't have fitted under there because it was flat, you know. It was just so wonderfully
unhinged.
Yeah, like in her world, she couldn't understand that. There's no way he could be under there. So, and then really not that bothered that he was.
God, what a day, I'm dead on my feet. I missed all the excitement again. Don't tell me he's decided to put a swimming pool in reception.
Helen, something rather awful has happened.
I know, but it's all right.
What?
I know he said he's not going to Brussels, but I met Linda at the post office. Oh, will you tell them, Linda?
I've got the letter. The Germans have agreed to pay everything.
It was a special delivery, you see, and they weren't too keen on giving it to us, but we got it anyway.
Mrs. Brittas snatched it and we ran.
So he's going to Belgium and everything's going to be all right. What are you doing in Ben's car, Carol?
Oh, Miss Brittas. Helen, there's been an accident.
Oh, I can see that.
The tank fell through the ceiling. And Mr. Brittas.
You mean he's under there? Well, how could he be? He wouldn't fit.
I'm so sorry.
At the end of Series 5, Gordon Brittas was crushed under the pressure of a falling water tank in the reception area of the leisure centre. But it didn't end there. His personality continued to cause a commotion, even when arriving at the pearly gates.
Excuse me?
Oh, nearly finished. Shan't keep you a moment.
115 separate acts of manslaughter.
Oh, dear, dear, dear.
Cause of 4 people committing suicide. And 23 driven clinically insane. That's it.
Right, what have we got on the other side?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well, there's a lot of good intentions.
Oh, well, we don't give any points for those now, do we?
Oh, hang on. Something's just come through.
Oh. Oh. You don't see many of those nowadays.
What is it?
It means he sacrificed his life for someone else. Gordon, welcome to paradise.
Helen has asked me to say a few words on behalf of the staff about Mr. Brittas. I'd like it to be you, she said, because I always thought that you liked him. And she's right. I did. There was a great deal to admire from Mr. Brittas. He was honest, hard-working, and anyone who knew him knows how much he cared about his centre and those of us who worked there. There were also, as there are with all of us, times when he got it wrong. A lot of times. And sometimes very wrong. Unlike most of us, he never stumbled through life wondering where he was going or what it was all for. He knew, because he had a dream. And if any proof was needed of what it means to have a dream, it was surely given in the last few seconds of Mr. Brittas's life. In that moment of choice, which fortunately few of us have to face, when what we do says what we are. And what Mr. Brittas did was to give up his life for a friend. I'm not sure if there's a heaven, but I am sure that if there is, that's where we'll find him. And a part of me can't help wondering what they'll make of him up there.
You take my word for it, Peter. 2,000 years is not too old to start playing seven-a-side. How about I put you down for practice on Thursday, we'll go through the rules, and then... Where are we going?
Don't worry, Gordon. All will be revealed.
We're going outside?
Just for a moment.
I think you'll find it's a big gold one, Pete.
What?
Here, let me do it.
Please, don't do that. I've told you before, I do the key, nobody else touches the key. I do the key and the gate. All right?
What's going on?
I'm afraid you're leaving us, Gordon.
Well, you said I was going to be here for
an eternity. Yes, I do know what you're saying.
We've had special orders. You're being sent back.
Oh, you mean like Carousel?
What?
I get to spend a day with my friends and family?
But this is longer than a day, Gordon. We had in mind 50...
50.
years.
50 years?
Look on it as a chance to finish your work, to fulfill your dream.
Oh, right.
Well, you better hurry. There isn't very much time.
Pete, Mike, I organised a quiz night for Tuesday, don't forget.
Don't worry, Gordon, it'll all be taken care of.
Forasmuch as it hath pleased Almighty God of his great mercy to take unto himself the soul of our dear brother Gordon, here departed, we therefore commit his body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in sure and certain... in sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life. That it may be like unto his glorious body.
Hello?
There were two more series after the original writers Andrew and Richard left to pursue other projects, and there's always been talk of a comeback. The character of Mr. Brittas has even appeared in music videos, Keep Fit tutorials, and he's also popped up on Blue Peter, amongst other comedy shows, particularly with a few memorable occasions on Noel's house party.
Excuse me, someone at the door.
Yes. Hello, Noel. I'm from Crinkly Bottom Leisure Centre. Now, I've been watching you.
Yes, I know. Look, if it's about all those little bars of soap that I've got in my bag and whatever, I mean...
No.
Or if it's about the 2,000 Sweet and Low sachets I've got in the boot in the car, I can explain...
No. I've been watching you exercise, Nolly. Sit-up. Your first sit-up.
Oh, yes.
You were at it 3 hours before I had to tell you had to start off on your back.
Yeah.
Then you went over to the treadmill, you walked up, you walked down, you walked up, down, 200 times before I showed you how to switch it on.
Yeah.
Anyway, every year we award the John Major Trophy for enthusiastic amateurs. Now, you've not won this before, have you, Noel?
No.
Well, I'm here to tell you, you haven't won it today. Bye.
Now, there's one clip that I'm going to end this little hour of nostalgia with. I think it really encapsulates the popularity of the sitcom. It really shows how it transcends the generations. At the height of his fame in the British Empire, Chris Barry appeared as a special guest on Saturday morning children's show Live and Kicking. Emma Forbes was presenting and she fielded questions from eager youngsters.
And anyone who completes either of our 2 cycle routes during Life Cycle Week will be entitled to one of these Pedal for a Medal achievement packs. Inside of which they will find not only the medal itself, but also a badge, a signed certificate, 2 coloured balloons, and a free blood sugar urine tester.
Chris Barry, welcome to Live and Cooking.
Thank you.
As everybody here was watching, they're all going, excellent, that's so funny, it's great. We're really pleased that you're here. Now, when you're doing Gordon Brittas, I just want to ask this, because I read that in order to do that voice, you have to flex muscles in your nose and hold your nose in a funny way. Is that true?
Well, I think it's probably like the character himself, very sort of anally retentive, I think someone wants to call it. You've got to sort of...
How, if you sort of contract the size of your throat, then it becomes like that, you see. So you've got to let the air out, a very thin fissure inside your head.
Whereas when you talk normally, you let it all out in a broad, sort of more relaxed way.
Is it quite difficult to hold your throat like that, though, or is it just...
Well, it is for about 2 hours, yes. Or 2 days sometimes, but,
you know, you get used to it eventually.
Okay.
You go home, in fact, talking like that, people tell you about it, I'll tell you.
Let's take a question from Kieran.
Do you base Gordon Brittas on anybody you know?
There's various elements of him based on about... I don't think he'd be alive, the person. If it was based on one person, I don't think that man would be alive today.
He's so irritating, isn't he?
There's about... He's a dreadful person. There's lots of mannerisms. The way he talks, that know-all way... that when he nods his head and says, yes, I'm absolutely right, that was based on someone that I worked with in about 1982.
Tell us.
We need the names, Chris.
But he wouldn't... but Dave Carson is nothing like that.
So don't be offended, Dave, right?
I hope... You know, he's a fantastic musical... I just remember a couple of incidents where he'd have the map, you know, we're travelling through Wales, you know, and trying to find the route to the next theatre, and he'd have the map on the bonnet of the Volvo. Volvo? Why did I say Volvo? I don't know why. And he was just... And the other guy was saying, I think the best way goes down that way. And he'd go, no, I think the best way is to go up the A4. Trust me. And it was that sort of thing where, you know, sort of always a assured nod. The physical mannerisms are based on another neighbour of mine, or a neighbour of mine. I don't think he really knows them, you know. You know, I sort of do them, and he goes, am I really like that, Chris? Never mind, you old roister-doister.
You've been listening to the British Empire Rebuilt. The programme was presented and produced by Richard Latto. Many thanks to the writers Andrew Norris and Richard Fegan for their kind help. You can listen again to the programme and see a video of the British cast reunion on the BBC iPlayer.
Happy Christmas from BBC Radio Solent.